Hey there, Trailblazers, I hope you guys are all doing well. So, just a few hours ago, we have received some new juicy information about new content and quality of life features coming to Honkai Star Rail in the upcoming updates. This includes a brand new skin for the character KAFKA, updated kit changes for all 3 of the new 3.0 characters, and also some very exciting quality of life features being added in the next update, including an increase to the current daily cap limit for Trailblaze power. But before we begin, let me just give you guys a quick disclaimer that everything in this video is based on speculation from various different sources and may be subject to change at any point in time. With that out of the way, let's begin without wasting any more of your time. Starting with the info about the new KAFKA skin. According to some info from a very reliable source with a solid track record of reporting accurate information in the past, who stated that some new files related to in-game character skins have been found in the recent game files for the version 3.0 beta, and according to information gathered by data miners, these skins will be made available to be purchased in the in-game shop. He further goes on to state that there will also be different skins for character with multiple paths as well, such as separate skins for the preservation and hunt version of March 7th, for example. Furthermore, the source states that during the beta for version 2.5, Hoyo actually gave some hints to who the first character with a new skin will be, which is none other than KAFKA. This is actually in line with some older reports of datamine files for an upcoming KAFKA skin being discovered way back in July as well. So, I definitely think there is prior evidence to suggest that this new skin for KAFKA is being worked on behind the scenes. The source also states that the default skin rarity is only 4 stars for now, which might disappoint a lot of people, but please keep in mind that this is only the default skin rarity found within the datamine files for skins in general, which doesn't necessarily mean that Hoyo won't be making any 5-star skins whatsoever in the future. Next up, let's now talk about the kit changes for the upcoming 3.0 characters. First, let's start with the changes for Madame HERTA. Starting with her ultimate, which had its attack buff increased from 64% to 80%. And the said buff now lasts for 3 turns instead of just 2. So the ultimate now provides 16% more attack to HERTA compared to before, and the buff itself now lasts for 1 additional turn, giving it way higher uptime, which is pretty nice. Next up is HERTA's talent, where the increased damage dealt to adjacent enemy targets from each interpretation stack has been nerfed from 5% to 4%. Furthermore, the additional 5% increase in damage dealt to adjacent enemies from each interpretation stack when you run a second Air Edition character with HERTA has also been now nerfed to 4%. While this is a nerf, it is a pretty minor one, as now instead of gaining a 10% damage increase on an enemy from each interpretation stack inflicted in a double Air Edition comp, it is now only a 8% total damage increase from each stack of interpretation, which is honestly not that big of a deal and doesn't significantly affect HERTA's current performance. And lastly, HERTA's technique got changed from applying 4 stacks of interpretation to all enemies on the field, to now applying 25 stacks of interpretation to 1 random enemy target at the start of each wave, which prioritizes an elite target or above. I consider this as an overall buff, as now instead of applying a small amount of interpretation stacks on all targets and wasting them on fodder enemies which die easily anyway, the technique now focuses on applying a much larger amount of interpretation stacks to the tougher elite and boss enemies instead, which makes it great for starting off a battle in game modes like Memory of Chaos and Apocalyptic Shadow, where you want to be focusing most of your damage on the elite and boss enemies anyway. So these are pretty much all the changes to Madame HERTA's kit. Next up are the changes for AGLAEA's kit. The first change is to AGLAEA's talent, where the initial speed of her Summon Garment Maker is now only 35% of AGLAEA's base speed instead of 40%. And the other change is to her Memasprite's talent, where the speed Garment Maker gains after attacking an enemy inflicted with the seamed stitch state has been nerfed from 60 to 50 points of speed. Additionally, during Garment Maker's turn, it automatically performs an attack, prioritizing the enemies under the seamed stitched state. And the last change is to AGLAEA's enhanced basic attack, where the scaling has been reduced from 220% and 88% of both AGLAEA and Garment Maker's attack to the main target and adjacent enemies respectively, to now only 200% to the main target and 80% to adjacent enemies. Overall, the changes include a slight nerf to Garment Maker's speed and a small multiplier nerf for the enhanced basic attack. So don't worry, AGLAEA is still very strong even with these nerfs. And the last changes on our list is for the Remembrance Trailblazer. The first change is a nerf to RMC's talent, where the Memo Sprite gains 1% charge for every 10 energy regenerated by all allies in total now, instead of only needing 6 energy in total like before. The Memo Sprite's talent, on the other hand, has been buffed from only giving 12% plus 18% additive crit damage to all allies, to now 12% plus 24% additive crit damage. The next change is to the Memo Sprite's attack skill, where it's been reduced from dealing true damage equal to 38% of the original damage, to now only 28% of the original damage. RMC's ultimate has also been altered, where it's been buffed from only giving 20% charge to the Memo Sprite, to now over 40% charge. Other notable changes include the technique, where it now deals ice damage to all enemies instead of true damage, RMC's Trace 1, which now gives the Memo Sprite 40% charge instead of 35%, and RMC's Trace 3, where if the max energy of the ally with the Memo Sprite's support exceeds 100 instead of 88 points for every 10 excess energy, it now increases the true damage multiplier by 2% instead of just 1.5%, and this multiplier caps out at only 20% instead of 24%. And the last change is for RMC's Second Eidolon, where the old effect of giving a 3% charge to the Memo Sprite every time a Ice Element teammate takes an action up to 3 times per turn has now been changed to a new effect, where if any ally in the team besides the Memo Sprite itself takes an action, Trailblazer now regenerates 8 energy, which can trigger up to 1 time per turn, and the count resets at the start of the Trailblazer's turn. Overall, RMC is still looking pretty good, with slightly higher requirements for ultimate energy and weaker charge generation, but with higher buffs to both team-wide crit damage and higher charge percent granted to the Memo Sprite. Lastly, go over the changes to both Madame HERTA and AGLAEA's signature light cones. First is Madame HERTA's light cone, which has been buffed from only giving 48% damage dealt to both the wearer's skill and ultimate to now over 60%. Additionally, the second effect of the light cone, where the wearer recovers 1 skill point if their ultimate consumes 140 or more energy, had its previous trigger count of only triggering 1 time every 2 turns completely removed. So now you can trigger this effect every time as long as your character's ultimate consumes at least 140 or more energy. Next is AGLAEA's light cone, where now each stack of the brocade effect increases the wearer's crit damage by 9%, stacking up to 6 times. Instead of previously where it gave a higher 15% crit damage buff, but only stacked up to 3 times. Additionally, the basic attack damage increase from each brocade stack has also been reduced from 15% to 9%. These changes may look like nerfs, but they are actually buffs, since the total amount of both crit damage and basic attack damage granted to the wearer is now actually 54% instead of only 45%, assuming you have all 6 stacks of the effect. So that's pretty much all the kit changes done to the patch 3.0 characters. Lastly, let's talk about some exciting new quality of life features being added to the game in version 3.0. The first change is a pretty big one, where now the daily Trailblaze power cap will be increased from 240 to 300. This is a very nice change, as now TB only caps out in 30 hours instead of 24, so now you can safely log in once a day to expand your daily energy without worrying about it overcapping. Other QOL changes include the immersifier limit for the simulated universe being increased from 8 to 12, and a new treasure compass item being added, similar to the one found in Genshin Impact, which now allows you to track basic treasure chests on the map without being forced to pull for a specific character for the same function. So that's all of the information that I have for this video. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel to keep yourself up to date with all the latest HSR news and information. That's it for now, so I'll see you in the next video.